till the end of time, come what may, come what may, 'cause I will love you so until my dying day. Pray for Mary LeMay as she's recovering.
Good evening and welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm your host, Joshua Solomon, and with me as always is the Honorable J.P. Marzullo, and it's getting hotter.
It is hotter, but we're not going to complain, right? We talked about that. Or did we? I don't know
It's
either.
getting hot.
Yeah, it is. We actually put the air conditioner on. It was so hot at home.
Yeah. I usually don't get to the air conditioner till mid-July.
So did you go to a
August.
Catholic school where they put the heat on for a certain length of time?
No.
And even in the winter, if it was 20 below, they wouldn't turn it back on, or they wouldn't shut it off in the summer, or no?
But my wife made me put the air conditioner in today, so
Good. Good going, Lorraine.
we haven't upgraded to the mini splits yet, but we will.
Oh, nice.
I'm tired of moving things around. The house is old and it doesn't have central
Yeah, we have
air.
central air. They tried to talk us out of it when we had the house built. The guy said, "Oh, we only get a couple of weeks of really hot weather. Just put some fans in." And I'm thinking,
Did you tell
No.
him? Did you tell him? But climate change, global warming. when you.
I have
No?
something fun.
No?
I have something fun that I heard on the news. So the Democrats have now decided to that they're going after ICE, as you know, right? But now they said that why are they masked? Are they embarrassed? Shouldn't they take their mask off so we can figure out who they are? And so the response to that was finally, they realized that we didn't need masks during COVID. And the other thing was, so they said, well, we'll make a trade. So next time there's a big protest, pro-Gaza thing, make them take their masks off so we can know who they are.
Yeah.
So that was kind of fun. I thought that was an interesting approach.
The reason law enforcement needs masks when they're doing raids and whatnot is to prevent the media and the Democrats from publishing their faces and doxing them, which is what the Democrats
That's what
do.
they're doing. Yep.
Democrats dox people they don't like.
Oh, yeah.
And then they swat them.
Yeah.
Right? If you ever get a pizza delivered to your house that you didn't order, call the police immediately and say, hey,
they're getting ready.
I'm home. There's nothing wrong here. There's nobody here. And I didn't order this. So if you get a call,
okay.
All right. We have a returning guest, Representative Joe Sweeney. How you doing, Joe?
I'm good, Josh. How are you?
Good.
Thanks for having me on.
Hi, Joe.
JP. Good to see you.
I didn't realize you were on before. When were you on?
A few years ago now, I think. But it was back when you were on Elm Street.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is so much better. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is so much better because you actually have a place to park.
Yeah.
You don't have to drive around for hours trying to find a parking
but you also
space.
don't get to go downstairs and just go right into a restaurant for dinner.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's true,
That
too.
was always fun, too.
Yeah.
But I don't have to shoot my way out of Elm Street every Wednesday night either.
Or have any protests outside then.
Yeah. Oh, that was fun. The Palestinian protests.
Oh, yeah. They marched right down.
I think it was, we had the show.
Yep.
We had the show. It was October 8th or 9th. It was literally like a day or two after the October 7th thing, or attack in Israel. And I think I had Mike Moffat on. I think it was Moffat. And it was just the two of us. And we talked about that. And then we stepped outside of the studio and we were faced with, I don't know, 100 college students chanting pro-Palestinian chants.
Yeah.
And we were like, maybe we shouldn't stick around. Like, it was...
Maybe you better not go to the restaurant.
Right. So, so yeah. But anyway, reminiscing about the Elm Street studio.
Go ahead. So there's so much to talk about, but don't you want to talk about who sponsors us first, or doesn't it matter?
Oh, yes. Actually, it's a good time. Thank you. As always, Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades is sponsored by the Wilson Hill Pistol Club. We are at 1732 Lakeshore Road, right here in Manchester, New Hampshire, and our monthly membership meeting is the first Wednesday of every month, and that's today at 7 p.m. Anyone can show up. You can see, you can show up to the meeting, see what we talk about, ask questions. You can join the club. We do not have a waiting list like other clubs. We are the oldest sports shooting club in the state. And you can find us at wilsonhillpistol.org. You can check our training schedule. I don't think there's much on the schedule right now. We usually slow down in the summer. Everybody wants to take breaks and take vacations, and it's really, really hot. So that's our sponsor.
Yeah,
All
thank you.
Thank you for reminding me.
You're welcome. That's why I brought this
today's
book
today's
now.
an important day because it is meeting day. So
That's at 7 o'clock, right after this show.
Right after this
So you
show,
need to
I will
zip
be a
over
few
there.
minutes late because I have to get out of the studio and get over there. But you will see me there.
So, Joe, there's a bunch to talk about, obviously. I think the biggest thing was, well, not the biggest thing, but one of the, I think, really cool thing was the No Sanctuary Cities.
Yeah.
And you sponsored that bill, and who was it? You had a senator as well, did you?
Yep. So I sponsored the bill in the House for. We worked with Senator Bill Gannon on the Senate
that's right.
side.
That's what it was.
He sponsored the bill on the Senate side. There were some differences between the two bills, but they complemented each other.
Yep.
So the governor signed both of them at the same time, so that they would go in effect. Senator Gannon's bill dealt more with authorizing local police departments to get into the 287G program, which we've already had our state police form a task force with. The 287G allows them to work with ICE, more directly and train our officers as ICE agents. So every department that partners in the 287G program can have a designated local officer that is trained as how an ICE agent would interact with potential suspects or illegals that have a detainer against them. So we're trying to get as many local police departments and county sheriff's offices on board with the 287G program just to help keep New Hampshire safe.
Yeah,
I think
awesome.
the goal from the legislature was to send the message clearly to everyone in New Hampshire and everyone outside of New Hampshire that if you're in the nation illegally, you're not welcome in the state of New Hampshire.
Yep.
Your city can call itself a sanctuary city, a welcoming city. Any of those policies we're not going to allow to exist in the state of New Hampshire. We're going to have to take those off the books, and your law enforcement officers can't be stopped from working with the federal government to keep our community safe.
Yeah, good job.
So how far does that go? Like you said, law enforcement officers cannot be stopped, but can local law enforcement opt not to work with ICE?
Absolutely. We're not mandating anything from the law enforcement perspective of it. If a local law enforcement office, and if the ones in like Manchester or Nashua, they might have more reason to.
But they can't interfere with the state police or ICE.
They can't interfere with state police or ICE.
They can't stop things.
Right.
From
They can't
happening.
stop things from happening.
They can't declare themselves a sanctuary city.
Correct.
And blockade legal law enforcement agencies, federal agencies, state agencies from enforcing the law.
Correct.
Okay. And what kind of pushback did we get on that?
The Democrats had a number of arguments against it. At first, they were claiming there were no sanctuary cities in New Hampshire. Yeah. And then activists from those towns that have adopted sanctuary policies would come to hearings and defend their town's policies on welcoming or sanctuary. DHS, the Homeland Security, actually just listed for cities in New Hampshire, both Lebanon and Hanover, as sanctuary cities that had adopted the policies. Obviously, with the new laws that we passed, they're no longer sanctuary cities because those aren't happening in New Hampshire anymore.
What are the penalties? Like what these two cities?
How do you enforce it?
How do we enforce it? We've told these cities, you are not sanctuary cities.
Yep.
And what's the recourse here?
In the language that
they're not allowed to. Okay, go ahead.
In the language that we passed between the Attorney General's office and the state treasurer, any state funds that go to those cities is up to like a 33% penalty, I believe. 25% to 33% of state funds. So if it's meals and rooms tax distribution, money that goes to the school district, all of those funds would be up in.
So if they don't take these policies off those local books, they're going to lose their funding.
Yep.
No more money.
Yeah, I saw that today actually, where it said Hanover and Lebanon was it?
Lebanon, yeah, and those are cities.
Yeah.
So those fall under the federal guidelines for a sanctuary city. There were like Peterborough came and defended their welcoming policy.
Yeah.
And it's great for them to welcome as many people as they want. But it's not legal in the state of New Hampshire for them to do so anymore, and it's not legal for them to stop law enforcement from working.
I absolutely don't have a problem with anyone welcoming foreigners who are here legally.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But if you're not here legally, why?
It's insane. So that's been their reaction. There weren't any sanctuary cities, then there are some, but they're okay. It's the standard practice, right? They deny it, and then they admit it, but they say, oh, well, it's okay. And that's been their MO. They called us Nazis and fascists on the House floor for supporting this, and it's
nice.
It just shows how completely detached from reality
and they're doubling down on this. This is what is unbelievable to me. They're doubling down on this and biological males in women's sports.
Oh, yeah.
I don't understand that. I mean, why would they? I don't get it. I don't see any strategy there.
Every message that they lost on in the 2024 elections, they have just doubled down throughout this entire legislative session. And I don't think they understand who they're actually trying to talk to or who.
Right, they don't understand. Yeah,
they're in a bubble, and it's amazing with the access to technology and information that we have today that they can't see outside of their little bubble and realize that this is not the direction the world is going. Not just New Hampshire, not just the United States, but the world. The United Nations this week, even they put out some information about, okay, we gotta back off on this transgender crap, right?
Yeah, I know.
Like, the world is telling you that you should not be doing this,
right?
And yet they're still going after it.
Well, and it's such a symptom that we're seeing in the United States of America and the United Kingdom, and no other country is going through this, especially among children, where they're pushing children to transition before puberty. No other country is going
try
through
that in any other country in the world.
Yeah.
Try walking across the border illegally in any other country in the world and see if you're welcome.
Right.
You see if there's any sanctuary cities in North Korea. I mean, have fun. Like this does not happen. There's no sanctuary cities in El Salvador or Venezuela. This doesn't work that way.
And
why does it have to be working that way here? And never mind, it's not working. All we've got is millions of criminals entering our country, and then we have to feed them, we have to pay for them, we have to house them,
give them an education. Yeah.
The Democrats believe for some reason that we have this burden to take care of everyone in the world. And everybody that has ever come through any sort of adversity, they should be able to come here and get all of the things that they need paid for by the taxpayer.
That sounds like a religion. They can go start their own religion.
It's like a cult.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
We need to put Americans first. We need to put people that have gone through the legal process the right way. We need to put them first. We spend so many resources, so much of our money. We're going into debt taking care of the world, and we're not taking care of our own people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's got to stop, and I think the Democrats, they wanted to recalibrate a little bit at the beginning of the year, and then they just
fell right
decided
back into it.
We're going to go right back into the 2024 woke radical agenda that was rejected.
Crazy.
I think they had 4 years of success in that woke garbage.
Yep.
Where a lot of these folks were actually elected on some of these woke policies. And they're scared. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to handle the direction that the whole country's going, the direction that New Hampshire's going. They don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to fight back against it. I think they're reverting back to what they think they know worked. They think this worked for them.
Yeah.
But a large portion of it is they got where they got by cheating, right? We're going to find out. History is going to show this, right? There's not a lot of politicians that walk through here and agree with my conspiracy theories that the 2020 elections were stolen all across the country, and in some small part here in New Hampshire as well. But history will show that. We will get to the bottom of it, and we will know that in the next 10 or 15 years. Before I die, history will say that, yes, these elections were stolen. This is how they were stolen. The 2024 election illustrated some of it, because you got a whole bunch of Democrats saying, hey, how come we had 80 million less votes in 2024 than we did in 2020? It's because we stopped you from cheating. Those 80 million votes never existed. Because what happened was Trump got almost exactly the same number of votes across the country that he did in 2020, and he won by a landslide. It's because this time around, all the people who were cheating didn't cheat because they didn't want to get caught and they didn't want to go to jail for it. But he didn't get any more votes in 2024 than he got in 2020, and he won by a landslide. And that tells me that there is something wrong there. And so that all these people who got elected during that time period, they think they got elected on these woke policies, and they think that these woke policies are what America wants, and they're wrong. Yeah. The cheating, all it did was make things worse for the party, because now all the people in power think that's what got them there, and it's not.
No, absolutely. And anyone can look at, there's that famous chart of election results in Pennsylvania. And then at 3 a.m., the blue line just skips right up vertically, no movement in the red line, and then that's the margin for the election. I don't think anybody can look at that and say, oh, that's a genuine result from any corner of the country.
Well, they're just finally starting to admit, yes, he was senile the entire time.
And he had the auto pen.
Well, then I don't know if you saw it today.
They're starting to admit all of these things that we said, yeah, these things exist. He's senile. He's not signing this legislation. Someone else is in charge, and he's sick, right? All of these things are now starting to backtrack and say, yeah, we knew this. And
Tapper's book.
Tapper's book. Then you had Karine Jean-Pierre today.
Oh, yeah, she's got a book.
Well,
leaving
she's
the
doing
Democrat Party.
Be my press secretary, and when you retire, you can write a book and all that business.
Where Caroline is punching them right in the face.
Every time they write a book, is please look at me. I want to still be relevant. I want the world to keep looking at me. And so now she's an independent. She's leaving the Democrat Party. So they're all denouncing the last 4 years of garbage, and eventually somebody's going to win the Pulitzer by writing that book about the stolen election, right? All of these journalists, you have an opportunity here, right? You can be the Woodward. You can be the man who wins, or woman who wins the Nobel or the Pulitzer, by exposing all of the garbage that you've been deliberately covering up for the last 4 years. You know it's there, but you're addicted to your paycheck from CNN, and you won't go against the news director's policies, right? Leave it, take all the information with you, and expose it, and you will be a hero to the planet.
Well, and all these Democrats
all that opportunity.
Absolutely, and all these Democrats can talk about how they regret the lives of the last 4 years. But in 2028, when the choice is Gavin Newsom, Pete Buttigieg, Kamala Harris, or Josh Shapiro, or Tim Walz, they've learned nothing.
No.
Like they will have learned nothing, and they will be pushing the same stuff that they were pushing. Tim Walz the other day was talking about how he wants to bully Trump.
Oh yeah,
over,
I saw
over
that.
deporting illegals.
Yeah, let's get mean and bully
Biden
Trump.
judge today. The family of the illegal, who was all here illegally, the illegal terrorist in Boulder, Colorado.
Oh right.
The family of the illegal was scheduled for deportation, and a Biden judge stopped it today.
Yep. Yep. I saw that.
It just, these people have no limits.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to come to a head too, because another item I saw today is now some AGs are starting to speak out and say, wait a minute. Statistically, there is no way that every single one of these cases could have been assigned to the same district court judge.
Yeah.
Or federal district judge. There's no statistical way that they can be randomly assigned to the same judge. So
Like
somebody,
District 9 in California.
somebody is handing these to that judge instead
absolutely.
of going through the process that is. So that's going to come to a head too, because there are clerks that are going to get thrown in jail for this, and you're on notice.
Yeah, and we know the ACLU judge shops all the time.
Yes.
They'll find what jurisdiction they want to file a case in,
Yep.
so they can get their preferred judge that either Obama or Biden appointed.
Yep.
And then they want to run the gambit on it.
Yep.
So there's a couple of things we wanted to talk. We had, just so you understand, we had Len Turcotte and Tom Walsh on a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking about, it's not a bill yet, but about the housing and the situation there and stuff. Can you kind of give the other side of that to the viewers?
Sure.
Because I think there's still some confusion, and even us, I'll speak for myself. You know, I moved to a town that's very small, Deering. We have, 1,300 people. There's 5 acre zoning. And that's the community I wanted to live in. You know, I lived in Annapolis with all the craziness and everybody on top of each other. I had an acre of land. I was like a mansion owner. I had a 3,200 square foot house, but then I could reach my neighbor's front door by going out the window. You know, one of those. It wasn't quite that bad.
Sure.
So one of the things we discussed was, I chose that area. I don't want somebody coming in and I don't want the state to come in and now and say, well, we need more housing, so we're going to use property around you and we're going to put in whatever. So where are we at with that? And I just think we need some clarification.
Sure. Because
I did pull up some of the things that Turcotte said, and one of the things Len was talking about was that he felt, it was just a scare tactic to talk about, in 2025, we said that we needed 25,000 homes by 2025. Now it's 40,000 in 5 years or something like that. So how do we look at this?
Yeah, so I would say, just to that last point, I never buy the statistics on how many homes we need to build to meet the market demand in New Hampshire, because the market demand always fluctuates, right?
Right.
We saw a big influx of people that were moving to New Hampshire during COVID, because throughout the Northeast, you had people that wanted to stay in the Northeast, but they wanted to get away from the states that had much harsher policies in COVID, especially going into 2021, when you still had big parts of New York and Massachusetts and Connecticut locked down.
Too. Yep.
And in New Hampshire, we were by 21 we were open again, and so we had a lot of people moving there, and that kind of lit a fire under it as well. I think there's an ongoing discussion in Concord, and it's going to continue. It's not going to be solved immediately, and it probably never will be solved. But it's where we stand as a party in our Republican caucus, where we want to respect local control, but also protect property rights of people that own the properties. I don't want the state going into Deering and telling you what you need to build, what you have to build on your property. I don't want the state lining up properties for developers to build as big as they want. I want the state to make sure that property rights are being protected so that homeowners in Deering, like yourself, can build on their properties the way they'd like to build on it. There's a number of bills that we are moving forward that deal with ADUs on properties.
Yeah, ADUs, right.
The manufactured homes, which are not like the trailer homes that people think of, but more of like, honestly, I talk to people about it's the old Sears catalog. where people 100 years ago were ordering homes on the Sears catalog, and they would come in on trucks or freight rail, and then they would assemble it. Those are sort of manufactured housing.
Well, we had a manufactured housing company here.
Yeah.
And I mean, my dad was a builder.
Yeah.
So he wasn't in favor of those, but I was in a very wealthy town. I grew up in Greenwich, Connecticut.
Yeah.
So you weren't going to see that. But now you look at some of them, they're built extremely well. They're put up quickly, and you know, they're cost effective. People can afford them.
And there are some there's zoning regulations throughout the state that don't allow for manufactured housing on a residential plot.
Our town is that way.
And so that's part of the conversation that we're having in Concord as to like what are the limits of local control, because there is that, you know, even among the liberty-minded folks in the House, there's the, I don't want state government telling me what to do, but I don't want the local government telling me what to do.
Yeah, I mean,
too, right? Like it's kind of like the boot of government anywhere is a boot.
I guess the thing that I'm trying to get through in my own mind is that I look at some of the liberty-minded Free State people who we know well. I won't mention any names, but they're fighting like heck to have this. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, aren't you the same people who say you don't want government control, but it's okay for the government to tell you what to do with your property and your zoning and that kind of thing?
And that's where I think we're trying to draw that balance, where we're having as few government regulations on what happens locally as possible. Like I think when they adopted the zoning statute 100 years ago, there were probably like 4 or 5 specific things that a community could zone out for, and now there's hundreds.
Yeah.
And it just sort of evolved over time, and it kind of got off of from what it, you know, originally it was to keep industrial polluters out of neighborhoods, and now it's keeping certain neighborhoods out of other neighborhoods. I think it's a big conversation. It's really hard to digest.
I know. I'm not asking. I just trying to get some idea.
It's probably the most intellectually provoking conversation we're having in New Hampshire right now, because it's what do we view as big government? What do we view as small government?
And will the town, boards have the last say? You know, the planning boards, and so that's something that really didn't come out either. I mean,
and we've seen, in reaction to it a few years ago, I believe when the Democrats were in charge, they put in the Housing Appeals Board into the budget, and that's overturned some local planning and zoning boards. And we actually, in the House version of the budget, we got rid of the Housing Appeals Board. The Senate put it back in, but we wanted to add an additional judge, which is staying in, to form more of a commercial court docket, so that instead of it being a board of people to get a quick answer to overturn a town's decision, it would actually go to a judge that could act on it and see what the grounds were for the denial and whatnot. So I think there's a lot of moving pieces to it, but I really look at it from like a 30,000 foot view of it. In our caucus, we're trying just to balance out what property rights do we want to protect, and what elements of local control do we want to make sure are still there, because there's benefits to both. I'm also a municipal official in Salem. I sit on the Salem Town Council. Salem has built a lot of housing over the last few years. The racetrack has transformed into a whole village development of condos and apartments and townhouses, and some of my folks in Salem want to see other parts of the state take housing, so we're not the ones taking all of it. Because we do have, while I don't necessarily believe in we need 40,000 units by 2030 or 2040. I do think that there are a number of Republicans living in New England that would much rather live in New Hampshire. And as a New Hampshire Republican, I would love to have those other Republicans move into the state. And that sort of goes in line with what the Free State Project has been trying to do for 20 years, is we have people, we are a great state. There's numerous rankings where we're number one for economy, safety, everything. So I don't think we can be surprised when people want to move here. And I think we've seen it in Salem, where we've had more people move into the town, and we've become more Republican as a town. The polling location in 2024 that moved the most to President Trump from 2020 was actually the polling location that has Tuscan Village in Salem, New Hampshire.
Wow.
It moved about 6 points.
So Joe had all his relatives moving.
Well, no, it's just there were a lot of everything Massachusetts is doing with the
not you, Joe. I mean, Fargo.
Yeah. all the Massachusetts taxes that the state of Massachusetts has put in place over the last few years. The millionaires tax. They're taxing people out of their homes. A lot of those Republicans are moving up to New Hampshire, and for them, it's easy for them to move up to Salem. We're happy to have them.
And they're going to, because I commuted to Boston.
Yep.
And I saw more cars going that way.
Oh, sure.
Than coming this way. So that's the next question: is what happens to these people? Are we looking for more industry here? I mean, that's something. Dean Kamen's group.
Yep.
I can see us being the next, high tech corridor.
Oh, absolutely.
And just watching the kids, I'll call you kids, but getting out of college and what areas they have studied. New England College has something like 5,000 Indian students who do a lot of it, online, but then come to be graduated here. And they're all computer type kids, and a lot of them want to stay here, and they probably will. I mean, during the time that they're at school, they're working for Google and Apple and just doing all this great stuff. And I'd love to have that here, but to your point now, or to the way I'm thinking, is how do you do that when, what do you have to do for housing?
Well, there's the housing component to it, but the bigger question for those if we want to attract high-tech industry, we need more energy in the state. We need more energy produced, and we need lower rates of electricity in New Hampshire.
Absolutely.
We're stuck in this New England market and this New England grid. We already produce more power than we need in New Hampshire. We export it to the grid, but we're in that market with everybody else. So we are looking at our options, not only to bring more generation to the state of New Hampshire, but to make sure that New Hampshire produced energy gets delivered to New Hampshire residents at the lowest rate possible. Hopefully, and it looks like President Trump worked out another one of his great deals with the state of New York to get the Constitution Pipeline through. So once we can have once that project can get underway and get built, and we can get more natural gas flowing into New England, that'll be great for energy prices. If we can get more nuclear, especially these small modular reactors that are coming online, if we can get those here, and if we've actually passed legislation to allow for these microgrids, where you could have a data center, that's like the future of high tech will be these big data centers. And then they can have a small modular reactor or some sort of power production right on site, and it can connect right to their data center without going to the grid first.
So what do you think the time frame is? Because I always get concerned, a lot of these great things we want to do, and 2 years later somebody else gets in and stops it all. What is the? We have a good bench, I think, by the way. I really do, as far as people can run for office and things. But yet that scares me. It'd be nice to have that open. I'd love to see our electric rates go down.
Right.
Getting killed.
And that's the thing. Energy is a 15-year conversation. Right. To bring on new plants and bring on new production and to have those reductions in rates.
Nuclear too.
It's going to be a 15-year conversation. We've made good progress in the last 8 years that we've been able to get good policies through. Obviously, we need to continue having a House and Senate majority and a governor and a Department of Energy that are on our side. And so we're obviously going to continue to fight for that.
Great.
And that's, I think people in New Hampshire need to understand that, some things there's not the immediate impact that our electoral system wants there to be, right? We have 2 years to get in and do the things you need to do. And you're not going to see the benefits of what you're doing until years after the session passes. And so it's kind of asking people for a little bit of patience, but also to know that we can just stick with the plan and we can keep adopting the things that we need to adopt in order to be attractive to the next generation of technologies. And we're talking, it's not going to be far off 20, 25 years from now when we have fusion tech for energy production as well, which has always been it's always been 30 years out, right? All the way back to the 60s, it was 30 years away. But I think in Washington State, Microsoft and these tech companies are driving it, which is great. It's all market driven, but they're driving the next sort of generation of fusion power in the country. And I think as the tech companies perfect it, and then they can become commercialized and built in states like New Hampshire, we're going to be one of the first to be really welcoming to it and open to having that industry here.
That's great. I see him thinking here.
There are a couple of bills moving through. The one is the ADU bill.
Yep.
What else is there?
So there's the ADU bill that we're working
There's
out.
a Senate bill too, right there.
There's a Senate bill on it's making sure that the manufactured housing bill and the ADU bill don't conflict with each other, because the ADU bill is allowing for detached ADUs wherever an attached ADU is allowed. We're trying to make sure that that doesn't mean you can just plop a manufactured house in your backyard and call that an ADU.
Got it.
So we're trying to make sure that the definitions all line up.
What would be the difference?
So an ADU is by design and by the intent of the legislature is an apartment above a detached garage or like a small cottage in the back, not a full-on other house that would be manufactured for it. So we're trying to make sure that in the next few weeks with committees and conferences that the definitions are all on the same page, so that we're not passing one bill that allows manufactured housing in every residential lot and then the ADU bill, and then every ADU is simply going to be a manufactured house parked.
Can I turn my barn into? How could I do that?
There's still requirements on the water and the sewer access, so it's not just going to be like crazy.
I have neither.
Yeah. So your town's still going to be able to say, okay, it has to have water, it has to have sewer.
Yeah.
Especially if it's detached, it has to have its own way to get to utilities. And so I don't know if we're going to see many barn conversions to housing. I think it's really the space that they want to play in is if there's a detached garage, which there's a lot in the state.
Yeah.
Building
above it.
an apartment, an in-law apartment,
Yeah.
or something above it for someone to live in. So that's one that's being wrapped up. One bill that we did pass that's on its way to the governor's desk is residential zoning in commercial zones. The idea there is you have a lot of spots in the state where we already have pavement, we already have utility access, we don't need to cut down trees in order for people to build housing or convert office space to housing. And so that was the intent and the goal of that one.
Was to allow residential in commercial?
In commercial. So
Always?
yes. So if it's like an industrial,
if it's zoned commercial,
yep.
then it's automatically eligible for residential.
And the local government has the ability to put guardrails on how much residential, how tall it can go, all of those pieces of it. They could make it so that the first floor has to be a commercial retail, and we're talking about a second story or third story of residential, trying to mimic the way that old downtowns were built. And like we have like in Littleton or in Portsmouth.
Franklin.
Right. You have the retail on the first floor, and then you have a floor above of residential where people would live, and then they'd work downstairs. Towns can still decide how tall they want buildings to go. So if you have a commercial area and you say, all right, yeah, residential is on the second floor, but we're only going to allow one-story buildings in the commercial area, then that's retail on the first floor. You're not going to have that residential. So they still do have tools through it to not have it. We're not putting 5-story buildings everywhere. Is not what we want people to think, but it's really kind of encouraging that movement towards, we already have places built out where they're connected to the grid, they're connected to infrastructure, water, sewer, the road network, and we can just add some incremental housing to it.
Okay. And that's passed both sides?
Yes.
And what are the chances the governor's going to sign it?
I can't speak for the governor. I think she liked that.
What's your gut feeling?
I think she would sign it. But if she doesn't, no harm done. But
okay. We were talking about the manufactured housing. You said what is this bill doing? Because if the ADU bill is different, what is the manufactured housing bill?
So
is it defining what is manufactured housing?
Essentially, and it's making sure that manufactured homes can be built on every residential lot, but not as an ADU. Just if you have a lot And especially if there's we've seen cases where a fire will burn down a house, and then instead of rebuilding the house as it was, they simply want to put a manufactured home there. In some towns in the state, you can't do that. And so that the goal there was to allow for manufactured housing in single-family neighborhoods, but not have manufactured housing be ADUs in those neighborhoods.
Okay.
Like, want to make sure there's a definition for ADU and a definition for manufactured.
Okay, so let's talk about a nice residential neighborhood. You've got houses that are all well kept, and they got themselves an HOA.
Yep.
Right? HOA rules say that I can't have such and such, and I can't have such and such, and whatnot. My house burns down. I go and buy a mobile trailer, and I plop it right there in the front yard, and the HOA goes nuts on me, starts billing me, right? But I go and I say, well, I can put this mobile home, manufactured home, right here on my lawn because my house burnt down, and I can do that because the state law says I can, and I don't have to listen to the HOA anymore. So tell me what's going on here.
So the state
because
law,
we've got a group of people who've decided that this is what we want our neighborhood to look like, and then you got one person in there who says, nope, I'm going to go against all the rules because the state said I can.
So when the state does anything on housing, when the state is talking about zoning, it is only affecting what the towns and cities can adopt for rules. An HOA is the purest form of property rights and local control, where an HOA is not, we're not telling HOAs what they can and can't do. So if you're in an HOA, if you bought your property knowing that you're in an HOA or you agreed to enter into an HOA, your HOA rules supreme. We're not going to interject ourselves into that conversation. We're only looking at what the actual arms of government are telling residents they can and can't do. But if they're in an HOA, if they have that private agreement, if they have those covenants with their neighbors, they can't just fall onto state law and say the state gives me permission to do it, so I'm gonna protest. The HOA has the right to still
you sign a
manage it.
legal agreement with an HOA.
Right.
Okay. So there's a double-edged sword there. I you know, a lot of people, when they're going in and purchasing a home, they may not have the power or the money to purchase a home in a location where there isn't an HOA, and they're just kind of forced into these HOA rules, right? Like the idea that an HOA can
sort of trump the state law.
A state law that's a little bit maddening because, you know, again, some people may have to buy that house because there's not another house without an HOA that's within their budget or location that they need to get back and forth to work. And I just want to buy a house and I want to put up a flagpole with a U.S. flag on it, and my HOA says no.
Yeah.
That angers me.
Absolutely.
I don't want the HOA's rule to be able to supplant state law. Right. This is, I'm playing both sides here.
Absolutely. And I don't want you to think that I'm like a pro HOA champion.
No. Like I said, I'm playing both sides.
Right.
I hate HOAs.
Yep.
Right. But then again, I'm playing that game where.
No, absolutely. And I appreciate it.
But now I'm realizing that an HOA trumps state law, and I don't like that either.
Right. But it gets down to HOAs being these private agreements that the property owners entered into, and then it passes on with the house. It's a much more firmer covenant on that property than the zoning laws are. Because zoning can change. Town board can propose changes, the voters, and you get 7% of voters in a local election can change the zoning. So it's really, it's between that balance between what we want the government to be telling folks what they can and can't do versus what property rights there are. And HOAs fall in that really kind of that gray area that we're talking about, where they are a system of property owners and property rights that they have locked into place, and they have put in via either deed restrictions or whatever covenant they have with the neighborhood that gives them the ability to have power over the properties, because every property owner gave up their power when they bought that house or when they entered into the agreement. And we're trying to separate it out where really I think what a lot of people think of as local control that they're talking about on Twitter or X or Facebook as what the State House and the Concord state government is going after. It's really, some communities have treated zoning laws as if it's an HOA. Mm-hmm. They've treated their zoning laws as if they're able to say, we're going to have like no flagpoles over a certain amount of feet, like we're going to have these certain types of characteristics on the houses and the buildings that can be built. And we're making sure that a government is not acting in that capacity. We never stop a group of property owners from entering or staying in an agreement. And if people want to go and change their HOA, they have that ability as well. And I'm with you. I hate being told what to do.
Okay.
And it's that.
So let's take that same scenario.
Yeah.
Let's take the HOA out.
Yep.
All right. And let's go back to what you just said, where some towns are treating their zoning laws as an HOA. Okay. And I bought a house in this neighborhood. I like this neighborhood. It's really well kept. The zoning laws I like, and I want to retire here. But new state law comes around and says that my neighbor over there can replace his house with a trailer, a manufactured home that doesn't really match the rest of the neighborhood. And that happens. A few years go by, someone else does it, and someone else does it. And all of a sudden, instead of living in this neighborhood, and the town zoning can't do anything about it. They can't say, no, you can't build that because the state law trumps the town zoning law. All of a sudden, over the course of several years, I now live in a trailer park. And I'm not downing trailer parks. What I'm saying is that now the property value of my house is now going down, right? Because of the direction of this neighborhood. This neighborhood has gone in the wrong direction. And it's gone in the wrong direction because everybody's relying on the state law and not what the town wants for zoning and not what I'm voting for zoning in my town. And so now I'm losing property value and my neighborhood may be going south as well. And I get into this situation and I keep bringing this example up. About 2 years ago down in the Gold Street neighborhood, there was an elderly man, about 73, 74 years old, who went for a walk on a rail trail. And he was stabbed to death by a homeless man from Minnesota. I think it was Minnesota. And he was stabbed to death. And that man he ran into Walmart. They got him, and he'll be prosecuted for this murder. But what just got me to the core about this particular incident was that man bought his house in a really nice neighborhood 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and this was his home, and his home deteriorated over time because of state regulations and local, everybody else around him making rules and deciding that we can adjust the property rules and more people can move in and more people can build. And all of a sudden his neighborhood has deteriorated to the point where he actually got murdered for going for a walk in a neighborhood that he really bought into, a nice neighborhood when he first bought it. He grew old, intended to retire and live the rest of his life there, but was murdered because the neighborhood deteriorated in a way that he didn't want it to deteriorate. And he didn't have the power or the voting power to overrule. And now we're kind of giving that power to the state, and the state is saying, yeah, you have to let this neighborhood rot. And you can't put in your own zoning laws to save it. That's the part that bugs me, because I live in a neighborhood like that. My house that I own now is in a really nice place. And I fear that over time, there can be the urban encroachment, all of the bad things that can happen in my area if we let it.
Right.
But I have voting power in my town to make sure that the zoning never changes in this area. But if all of a sudden a corporation, there's some elderly folks across the street that are unfortunately going to pass away in the next 10 years, and that house is going to get sold. And some corporation can come in here and say, okay, based on the size of this lot, I can put this and this on this lot, and I can change the neighborhood, and there's nothing the town can do about it. And now all of a sudden, I'm looking at a multi-unit apartment building across the street from me. That's what's going to make me angry. That's what's going to make me say no to the ADU bill.
Yeah. Look, I think every point you just made is extremely valid. And I think it highlights just how nuanced this debate can get in Concord with how we're trying to balance out what an individual property owner can do and how we protect property rights and how we balance it out with local control. I don't think every bill doesn't have all the answers. And I think it is that ongoing conversation because we don't want to encroach on nice neighborhoods.
Yeah,
we don't want to.
I just think, I agree that for the areas that need more housing, we've got to come up with something.
Yep.
But the solution for that in the larger cities like Salem, Manchester, Nashua, Dover, Concord,
Franklin,
where they have homeless issues, they have these problems. The solutions to those problems in those cities is not a solution that the town of Deering needs. They don't have a homeless population. They don't have a vagrant population. They don't have an overgrowth population. They don't have these problems. And having the state mandate that statewide to these guys doesn't do anything but encourage developers to come in here and just mess the place up or mass the place up. And I don't think a statewide rule that does that is going to solve the problem. So that's just my take.
No, I appreciate it, and we've been hearing that.
I think we need to realize that these other areas, they don't need the solution. The solutions need to be in these blue cities that have been run by Democrat mayors for too long. They're the ones who need a solution, and the solution needs to come from within.
Oh, absolutely. And you touched on homeless, and this will probably be the clip of the show that actually goes viral for me. The solution to homelessness is bringing back asylums. And actually, the people that are mentally ill, like getting them the help that they need. It's not necessarily the help that they want. I mean, you have the homeless problem in Manchester. You have so many who are given opportunities to get into housing at a halfway house or some sort of medical facility, and they're rejecting it because they can't use. Right? Like, and there's no ability.
You can't give them that opportunity.
Right.
You cannot allow a homeless or mentally challenged individual to say no to being sober.
Right.
That's not how this works, right? If someone like that needs help, we need to give them the help whether they want it or not. And that's exactly what you said, is that they don't want it.
Right.
Or they don't, and that's I think that's the problem, is that there needs to be some balance there. Obviously, we don't want to take away individual rights, constitutional rights, and that's where this all led to, is people were being institutionalized against their will, without representation, and that leads to this. Okay, now we're erring on the side of this, and now we have a drug problem, a homeless problem, a mental illness problem that's just out of control, and now we're importing illegal immigrants into sanctuary cities, and we're just accepting all of this. There's your housing problem.
Correct.
That's how we solve it. I don't think zoning, to some extent, some towns have overly restricted zoning. I get it. Those towns need to be told, hey, you need to back off a little bit. On the other hand, we don't want to go so hard on them that we say, okay, every single town needs to abide by these 5 rules. Well, these 5 rules don't meet the same, or don't have the same meaning in a town like Deering as they do as in Manchester.
Yep.
So. I'll get off my soapbox.
No,
I've been on it for a little while. So
I appreciate this conversation because it is, and I said it before. It's the most intellectually provocating conversation we're having in the state right now, because there is genuine, like, not even fundamental beliefs, because it's not a partisan issue as much as it's really like, what lens are you looking at in terms of where you want government to be, where you don't want it to be, where you want to see local control and influence. I'd love to see more people vote in local elections. I think there'd be a lot more faith in the local decisions that
Yeah,
are
I
made
would too. I'd like
if
to
we
see that.
saw higher turnout, because it's tough for us to see
Problem is, we don't see turnout
Right.
until the
presidential
Presidential
elections every
elections.
4 years. And
Yeah.
Every off cycle is just a total disaster.
Yep.
And of course, every town has an annual town meeting, and I don't think people realize that.
No,
and I don't think they realize how important that is to their own personal property taxes either.
Right, 7.5%, give or take, of voters get to determine who wins their local elections. When you have a 15% turnout, if you have a 15% turnout, it doesn't take much to win a local election.
Yes.
Or to impact the zoning or everything, which is why it's tough for us to say, okay, well, we have property owners that are being treated any sort of way by these towns, and the town's decision come from a fraction of the voters. So anything we can do to get more people in local elections, I'd love to do, because I think that'll solve a lot of the headaches that we're seeing on zoning and a lot of other property taxes, especially in the state.
Okay. Anything else you want to?
Well, bail reform, but we're way past that. And we have Terry Roy coming in.
Terry will be great on it.
Yeah.
And will Terry be next week or?
No,
or
I
a
think
couple weeks?
I think next week is
Oh, we had him last week. Or
Negron.
We just had him, didn't we?
No, he didn't come in.
Are you sure?
Yes,
Okay.
we did have him.
Yeah.
We did have him. But
We
I
had
think,
him a
yeah.
couple
but-
of weeks ago.
Yeah, but I think
he's going to come again.
Yeah, because everything has come to fruition now.
Okay.
I mean, he was just
Right.
talking, but next week Steve Negron's going to come in.
All right.
So that'll
Maybe
be.
he'll have an announcement or two.
Yeah, we're trying to get an announcement out of people. We tried
Yeah.
Chris Bright. We told Tim to announce on the show, and he kept playing games.
Yeah, we
but
everybody says no.
we've got to win those seats.
Yeah,
I mean,
it'd be great.
it's time. We do such a great job in the state, and then we don't have time to get into it again, but then we lose in the national, and it's a question of the kind of candidate we get and whether or not we just turn the other cheek, and let them continue to do this.
All right. So at least, I mean, we're moving forward
Yeah.
on the housing issues, the zoning issues.
Yeah, thanks for
we're
going
moving
through that,
forward, and
yes.
at least we're having the discussion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I love it. I love it.
Me too.
All right.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank
All
you.
right, 1732 Lakeshore Road in 5 minutes. Be there or be square. We'll see you next week.